So in case you couldn't tell from the last hour of rambling, nerd-tastic ranting, I wasn't exactly happy with the story that was told in Wings of Liberty. I'm a little leery of making some alternate suggestions, since I don't like to imply I could write a better story, but I kind of feel it's important to emphasize just how little would have to be changed to transform the bullshit that was the Terran story into something brilliant. Keep in mind that the general arc of this story is pretty great. It's got a beginning where things get started, a middle with some new developments and some progress, and a nice big climactic finale. My disagreement with Blizzard is in a few specific moments, and here's some ideas that might have worked better. Number 1, fucking deliver on the whole Raynor versus Mengsk thing. Seriously, this gets built up as the focus of the story for so long that it turns into a fucking tease. I guess Blizzard wanted Kerrigan to be the one to actually get revenge on him in Heart of the Swarm? Who cares? I got invested in what the Raiders were doing to bring him down. I want to see them take out the Dominion. Number 2, make it a character study of Raynor that isn't trying to force us to like him. I really liked Raynor in the first half of the game, probably because I'm also a selfish drunk with a revenge complex.
We are who we choose to be, Matt.
Then the game suddenly started trying to make me like him, attempting to convince me that he had noble intentions going to Char, having him give stirring speeches over the corpses of dead Marines, and so on. Just let him come into his own as a morally ambiguous character, damn it. And tying in my first point, you could even go so far as to have the Raiders take Mengsk down at the end of the second act. Horner stays on Korhal and begins the dirty, tedious work of setting up a new Terran government, since he's actually competent. Meanwhile, Raynor and Valerian Mengsk take the fleets on their merry fucking misadventure to Char. If you wanted Raynor to evolve as a grittier character and set up some real hooks for the later games, you could even have Kerrigan kick their asses at the end. Then Raynor has to ask himself some hard questions about who he is and what he stands for afterwards, and you're all set up for a real Zerg campaign, not some have-it-both-ways waffling crap with a human protagonist. Number 3, remove the Zeratul missions entirely. Well, fuck, man. I really hope I don't have to elaborate on that any further after the earlier chapter. The reason I find the narrative missteps Blizzard took in Wings of Liberty to be so frustrating is it's one of the best fucking games I've ever played. I'm not kidding, StarCraft 2 is just as addictive and engaging as StarCraft was, while polishing over a lot of the flaws of the original game. One of the central elements that the campaign did correctly was making sure that the tone of the game was close enough to that of the original. Sure, it's slightly more lighthearted and a little less gritty than StarCraft 1, but they still captured a feeling of an isolated humanity on the edge of space. Life is clearly hard for most people out on the Rim, and the human's existence is constantly on the tightrope as they live in the shadow of two imposing alien races. The government are assholes, Marines still die by the truckload. The vibe of the story in the world feels very true to the first game. If you played and enjoyed the Wings of Liberty campaign and none of the things that I just bitched about for like an hour bothered you, this is probably why. Because game developers often focus most of their attention on keeping the way a sequel plays true to prior installments, keeping the tone of a sequel true to the original is actually one of the easiest things to fuck up.
Heard there's a shitload of grubs there, Sergeant!
More like 10 shitloads. I just lost my fucking brother, all right? You hear that? My brother!
Considering all the lore and characters that Blizzard eagerly trashed, I'm pretty damn surprised by how nicely they got this one. Additionally, as games go, Wings of Liberty is very visually rich. There's a lot of nice metal and wood and stuff in the cutscenes and on the Hyperion, the character designs are nice, and the dialogue animations are very well done. Meanwhile, the in-mission models retain a lot of the toy-like quality for buildings and units. It feels very much like a consistent modernization of the older games. But the amount of talent and love put into the game by the artists, animators, designers, and so on is precisely what serves to make the game's narrative flaws truly glaring. Blizzard has always put a lot of richness into their games. You didn't always have to see it, but if you were looking for it, you would find it. You had manuals chock full of lore, little details about every unit, and those funny things the guys on the field would say when you clicked on them.
My life for hire. I mean, Ner'zhul.
They really invited you into the world of the game. If you ever spent an entire weekend playing StarCraft or Warcraft, you know how easy it was to get sucked into that kind of universe. So when the writers are actively contradicting incredibly important details about the game world and the characters, it's like you get kicked right the fuck back out. You really can't expect people not to notice this stuff. If you create games deliberately and carefully crafted for fucking nerds to get super invested in, you really shouldn't be surprised if they get all whiny when you start changing things on them. But the part where things get well and truly insane is when Blizzard wants you to accept the changes they're making, even as they remind you of their pedigree for detailed lore and world crafting. When you first install Wings of Liberty, you get a recap of everything that happened in the previous games playing in the installer. And Brood War is the first fucking thing mentioned in the opening cutscene.
Emperor Arcturus Mengsk held a press conference commemorating the end of the so-called Brood War some 4 years ago.
Blizzard seems to be well aware that people remember the calculating evil of the Overmind, the momentousness of Tassadar's sacrifice, the cold treachery of Kerrigan, and the rage that Raynor felt at her betrayal, all while asking us to blindly accept information that directly contradicts all of those tremendously important elements that the entire story hinges on. It doesn't feel sloppy or accidental. It feels crass and exploitative. It feels like they just don't care. So maybe some of you are saying, is it really worth getting all worked up about a story from a fucking video game? Well, that's a bit of a distraction. I'm not saying that every game has to have a great story. Sometimes good gameplay is more than enough. But I don't think it's unfair to ask that a developer maintain just some consistency. If I wanted random characters coming back to life for no reason, a complete lack of forward movement from the plot, and abrupt regression from established character development, I'd still be watching all those anime shows that have gone on for hundreds of episodes and written themselves into a fucking hole. Don't get me wrong, people who get mad about these lore details don't always include people who just play StarCraft for some fun gameplay, for mostly multiplayer, or for the esports scene. I don't expect everyone remembers all these details from StarCraft 1 the way I do. But does fantastic art direction, brilliant mission design, and one of the best multiplayer experiences ever made excuse the complete desecration of the story and universe? Well, fuck no!